Washburn Schindley is not a monster, ladies and gentlemen. Krista did not set out to adopt or foster any of these children with the intent to commit the acts alleged in the indictment. All Krista ever wanted was a big family, one that included lots of children, even if it meant that they had to adopt and foster. Now, there's a lot to be said about Krista's experience throughout her childhood as well as her adulthood, but that'll take quite a bit of time. So I'm going to leave that to Miss Dr. Allison Baganelli, who you will hear from next week. But I did want to talk to you about a 10-year span going from 2013 to 2023. Krista and Tyler Schindley was married in October in Ohio in 2023. I'm sorry. At that time, they shared 4 children amongst themselves, and Miss Leonard laid those children out for you: Ethan, Elijah, Ethan, Tyler. And Mr. Schindley also had a daughter named Taylor Schindley, but she was not with them. In a matter of 3 years, Krista, Tyler, and Elijah, Ethan Tyler, and Ethan Washburn moved to Georgia. As the older boys began to grow up, Krista and Tyler decided that they wanted to add more children to their family, because all she ever wanted was a big family. They start talking about adoption and fostering, and they thought that that would be the best option, due to the fact that Krista was getting older and they was concerned about birth defects. So they met with Families for Families, who you will also hear from, and they attended a seminar on fostering and adoption. And at that time, they also began the process of doing so. Around 2018 is when they got their first children that they fostered. It was 3 children. Krista bonded with them and attached to them very quickly. However, they were separated from those 3 children within 33 days. Krista was devastated by this, and she even went to Families for Families and told Families for Families that there was no way that she can foster again without knowing whether or not the kids was going to be adoptable. So Families for Families give her a call and let her know that they got 2 sets of twins, which is Alyssa, Elliot, Amelia, and Ariel. Now, Krista was looking to foster and adopt at least 3. So she thought about it, and she didn't know if she could handle it, but she was willing to try. And so she agreed to get all 4 of these children. She had already started making plans, already bonding with them, because of course they get to see these children and spend time with these children prior to actually fostering and adopting. So she formed bonds and attachment with the twins. She loved the twins. Families for Families then came to her again the last time and said, well, we have another kid, and he is the older sibling of the 2 sets of twins, and his name is Evan. Yes, Evan do have a lot of problems, behavioral issues, as the state just told you. So I won't get into all of that, because they already just told you. And yes, they did tell Krista that he had those problems. However, what they didn't tell Krista was the severity of the problems. Krista was still willing to take on not 3 that she expected, now 5. And there's also Elijah. There's also Ethan Tyler. There's also Ethan Washburn. Now they all teenage boys. So now we have 8 children. It becomes very overwhelming for Krista. And Krista expressed her concerns several times, not only to Families for Families, but also to defects. And I suspect that you'll hear from Miss Stephanie Sladen, who was in charge over the case with defects. Because Families for Families was just the middleman between defects and the Schindleys. So you'll hear from Stephanie Sladen. She also expressed her concerns with the teachers, the counselors, everybody that she could at Rock Spring Elementary. And every time she expressed those concerns, she was looked upon as being, just not loving Evan, just like the state said. But that wasn't the case. She was super, super concerned about what was going on, about the obsession with food, about all the behavioral issues, not only at school, but at home as well. Her cries for help went unanswered. She begged them to help. Not just her, but also Evan. She went as far as to do her own independent research to see what could possibly be wrong with Evan. Because when she did take him to the doctor, every time she would take him, everything was always considered to be undeterminable. So he was never really properly diagnosed because everything was undeterminable. And it was that way because he was so young. When Christa got Evan, he was 5 years old. And doctors don't like to diagnose children with a lot of psychiatric diagnoses at such a young age. And y'all hear also all about that. At the end of the day, like I told you guys, her prayers, her wishes, her cries for help went unanswered. Yes, COVID came. We all went through COVID. COVID was hard. It was hard for me, and I didn't have any children. So having 8 during COVID, not having the proper tools that she needed to not just comfort Evan, but to calm him also. She was overwhelmed, is what Krista was. But Krista never intentionally starved Evan, beat Evan. You're going to hear a lot of testimony. And I'm not going to go into all that testimony right now. That's what the witnesses is for. But what I will tell you is that the burden of proof rests with the state. It's their job to prove each and every element of the crimes charged in that indictment. So what I want from you guys is I want you to listen carefully. I want you to watch closely. And as always, yes, keep your common sense right where it is, because you're going to need it. I asked, we're going to come back up to you, both the state and the defense. And we're going to talk to you again after you heard from all the witnesses, all the testimony. And I ask that you diligently while you're back there. It's important. You are the most important people in this courtroom today. You are. Because at the end of the day, you are the ones that's going to review the evidence and that's going to make the determination of whether or not Ms. Schindley is guilty. And I suspect that after you hear all the information, and not just bits and pieces, that you also will find that Ms. Schindley, Christa, did not intentionally harm Evan Schindley or any other child that was in her care. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Moody. About 25 years ago, the Atlanta Recording Artists Outcast once did not sing "You Can Paint a Pretty Picture, but You Can't Predict the Weather." They said you can paint a pretty picture, but it is by far the most misquoted, misunderstood line on any Outcast album. And that's what we have here. Just like them, we misunderstand what's going on. We do have a pretty picture. Can't predict any of the other stuff that's going on. Were they planning a picnic? Were we just trying to paint a picture? Everyone is misunderstanding what is going on here. This is going to be a very complicated case. If you can't tell from the overexertion of Brady Bunch material here, there's a lot of moving pieces. That's why we told you to plan for about 2 weeks, because there is a lot going on. We were going to hear a story and listen to various testimony. You'll see pictures, may see some videos. But not going to serve any popcorn while we watch them. But you're going to have an opportunity to take in everything. And as you can tell, the camera's in the corner. We see a pretty packed courtroom here. This has been a kind of a big deal. So there's going to be extra. There's going to be more. And what this boils down to, and what we're going to try to eliminate the noise, to plan the picnic better, what we're going to try to do is break it down as simply as possible. You had two parents trying their best. You had a dad working himself to the bone, trying his best. I mean, yes, this is a beautiful house. And it's filled with 8 children, 2 adults. That's a lot. So while the state's going to introduce all this evidence and try to bring things to light and show and meet their extraordinary burden, I want you to look at it through your eyes. Heck, I think almost all of you are children. Have children. And see what is actually in front of you. My client, now, notice we have a big table and there's 2 defendants, but I'm representing specifically Tyler Schindley. So most of my stuff's going to be aimed at just his interest. But in a lot of places, their interest aligned. Because they were trying their best. And that's what you'll be left with. So after, I'm not even sure how many people you're going to hear from, there'll be a lot. After you have all the evidence, we're going to come back here at the end of this trial. We're going to talk to you about what that evidence looks like, how we believe you should view it in terms of the facts, the law, and how it applies to our clients. And I think you'll see that when reviewing all this in reference to Tyler Schindley, that you were going to see somebody who loving father who tried, was trying, and never had any sort of intention whatsoever of depriving any child, much less he.